there's one thing that I learned from this past holiday season. It's that traditions are super important to me. They're super important for me to carry on through the holidays, especially and primarily for my kids. We had basically 3 months of chaos and bad things happen. Our 10-year-old dog, unexpectedly passed away during surgery. That was in September. In October, my daughter Keira got into a car accident. Her car was totaled. In November, Adam's aunt passed away from ovarian cancer. And then in December, I also had another breast MRI, which I get every 6 months. And now I also have a suspicious spot in my left breast, which I am currently working on. Hopefully, I have a consult in a few weeks to get a preventative mastectomy. All of that in the face of still working full-time, traveling, all the things I normally have to do. But the reason why I was able to carry on kind of as normal through all of the holidays was because it's super important for me to have those traditions and experiences for my kids, and for that I am really grateful. And even though this year was a bit different and more tragic than most years, I still wanted to share it with you guys. So let's get into it. So I always start my Thanksgiving dinner prep by making the turkey brine. You always want to do this at least the day before. Sometimes I do it like 2 days before Thanksgiving. Obviously this year I did not have my shit together. So we're doing it the day before, which actually was fine because I ended up finding an already thawed turkey at Hy-Vee. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm heating up some water in a pan along with the salt and all of the spices that go into the turkey brine. If you've never brined a turkey before, it really does make a difference in the final turkey in terms of how juicy it is. So you just want to kind of bring all of that stuff to a boil and then cool it. And I'll show you how I brine it here in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap my turkey. I washed my sink out. Essentially, you just want to give your turkey a really good rinse in cold water. Take all of the neck and the giblets and everything out of the center of it. Now set those aside because you're going to use those to make your turkey gravy. I don't know if you saw the price tag when I held it up to the camera there a little bit ago, but this turkey was $71. Now I know it was a big turkey, but I was still like shocked at the price of the turkey this year. I don't think it's ever been that expensive before. So go ahead and rinse the turkey out, drain all of the excess water off of it. And then I have a food safe 5-gallon bucket, which I'll show you here in a little bit. That is the easiest way I have found to brine the turkey. You can use brine bags, but honestly, I've had those leak before, and so I don't recommend it unless you're in a pinch. You want to pour a bottle of wine over your turkey. That's an ingredient in the brine recipe. Pour in that brine, that kind of like concentrated mixture with the salt and the spices. And then you're going to add some onions, some herbs, rinse out the pot with some more cold water so you can make sure that you get all of that salt in there. And then the key with this, especially if you have a really big turkey like I did, it's really going to fill up that bucket. So you kind of have to be careful to make sure that you don't kind of spill everything on the floor. I like to lift the turkey up and down a few times just to make sure that everything is submerged in the liquid. Obviously there's a cavity inside of the turkey, so you want to make sure that that brine has contact with all of the parts of the turkey. And then once it's fully submerged, you can put the lid on it, stick it in the fridge. I just put it in the garage fridge and I take a shelf out of the fridge so it will fit in there. This is the turkey gravy recipe that I use from Alton Brown. I do like to make the stock the day before also, because then all I have to do on Thanksgiving Day is just to make a roux and put together the gravy. The first thing I'm doing is just chopping up my carrots and onion and celery. You don't have to chop these into small pieces because you're basically just using them to flavor the turkey stock. And then go ahead and saute those with just some vegetable oil along with the turkey neck, and add some salt and some pepper and some herbs. And you're going to cover this with cold water and basically let it simmer for as long as you want. 2 to 3 hours is probably best, but you could let it go a little bit longer if you wanted it to. Obviously, the longer you let it simmer, the more flavor there is going to be. I like to add some peppercorns in there. And then all I said, all you have to do on the day of Thanksgiving is make the gravy out of it. That's what it looks like after it had been simmering for a few hours. It makes a really flavorful stock. It's so good. When it's done, you can just pour it through a strainer into a big container. Just strain off all of the solids, and then I usually transfer it into some plastic containers, let it cool, and then just go ahead and pop it in the fridge for the next day. Next up, I'm going to work on some broccoli salad. So I normally like to make this for Thanksgiving because sometimes I feel like I need something green on the table. There's a lot of like beige casseroles that you have for Thanksgiving. So I feel like this is a nice kind of change of pace from that. This broccoli salad is my aunt's recipe. I've shared it with you guys before, and it's really good. You just want to make sure that you are cutting the broccoli into smaller pieces. It's going to make it easier to eat. You don't want like huge chunks of broccoli that people can't, fit on their fork or fit in their mouth in bite-sized pieces. I also like to put grapes in this. I know some people use raisins or craisins. And then this recipe does call for Miracle Whip. I typically don't use Miracle Whip. There's only a couple of recipes that I use Miracle Whip for. But the dressing is just Miracle Whip, sugar, and some vinegar, and then whisk that together before you stir it into the broccoli. The other recipe that I use Miracle Whip for is my grandma's potato salad recipe. It's like half mayo, half Miracle Whip. And so once the dressing's done, you can just pour it over the broccoli. The recipe calls for, I think, like either a half or a whole red onion. I don't like that much onion in mine, so I just do a few slices, thinly sliced red onion. Go ahead and have your grapes, throw those into, and then go ahead and stir this up. The great thing about this broccoli salad is you can make it the day before, and it actually tastes a little bit better because the broccoli has time to soften in with the dressing. I do like to add a little bit of salt, but don't add too much salt because you're also going to add bacon, and the bacon is obviously salty. So I just cooked up some strips of bacon, let them cool, and cut them up. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the top of the salad, and then toast up some sliced or slivered almonds, and then put those on the top too. Now you don't want to stir in the almonds and the bacon or it can get soggy. So I kind of just leave those on the top, cover this in plastic wrap, put it in the fridge, and then when it's time to eat, I can mix it all together. So it's now Thanksgiving morning, and I did have to get up rather early since this is such a big turkey. It's going to take a little bit to cook. You want to lift it out of the brine and go ahead and put it in your sink. This is where I love having a large single basin sink. I always recommend it to anyone who is replacing their kitchen sink or building a house or whatever. I love the big single basin sink. It is great for so many things. So for this, there's going to be like a lot of onions and herbs and stuff stuck inside the turkey. That's fine if some of those are still in there. It's not going to hurt anything. This turkey was so big, it barely fit in my roasting pan. I had to tuck the wings under and kind of shove it in there. But we made it work. You just want to kind of make sure that you rinse any of the extra salt off of the skin of the turkey. And then we're going to apply the dressing to the outside of the turkey. And by dressing, I mean that we're going to put some butter and some wine in a pot, and we're going to soak some cheesecloth, and we're going to put that on the skin of the turkey, and that is going to help make the skin super flavorful and brown. Have some morning wine with me. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Once the butter is almost all the way melted, go ahead and pour that other bottle of wine in with that melted butter. And this is going to become your basting mixture as your turkey cooks in the oven. So put some cheesecloth in there, let it soak, and then take that soaked cheesecloth out of the solution, kind of drape it over the top of the turkey as evenly as you can. It's kind of hard because it's a little bit hot, but essentially you just want to try and cover the breast with this. It kind of serves two purposes. So it makes the skin brown, and then it also helps keep the turkey breast from drying out. So once your turkey is covered up with your cheesecloth, you're going to put that turkey in the oven. And I can't remember how long I cooked this. I want to say like 3.5, maybe 4 hours. But while that is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the pumpkin pie. Some people like pumpkin pie, some people don't. I personally think you can't have Thanksgiving without pumpkin pie, so I always make it. And the recipe that I use is just the Libby's classic recipe. It makes the best pumpkin pie, I think. So in this bowl, I'm whisking together my sugar and spices. I realized when I went to make the recipe that I didn't have any ground cloves, so I had whole cloves though, which do it the old fashioned way. Get out your mortar and pestle and grind up your cloves. I'm going to go ahead and crack some eggs in there and whisk that up and then pour in a can of evaporated milk. I like to kind of mix all of these ingredients together so the sugar can start to dissolve before I add the pumpkin. Whisk that together until it's smooth and then add your can of pumpkin puree. You want to make sure you use pumpkin puree and not pumpkin pie filling. Those are two different things. Also two different things, evaporated milk and sweetened condensed milk. You can bet your ass I was not making homemade pie crust this Thanksgiving. One thing I didn't mention is that Adam's aunt actually passed away like 2 days. I think it was either that Monday or no, I think it was Tuesday. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, which made things a little bit challenging. That was like when my mom passed away, like, what was it? Like 4 years ago. It was also right during Thanksgiving and Christmas. I feel like that just makes everything a little bit harder. But, this year I really tried to like take help from the store where I could, buy pre-cut vegetables, do those kinds of things. I do like to kind of take a knife and make sure that all of the bubbles are out of the pumpkin pie. And then this is what it looked like when it came out of the oven. I'm going to pop that in the fridge for later. Sweet potatoes. Okay. I am actually not a huge fan of sweet potatoes. I never have been. I will eat them. It's just not my favorite thing. I prefer like savory sweet potatoes, like sweet potato fries. But there are a few people in our family, including Adam's dad, who like sweet potato casserole. So I always make it for Thanksgiving dinner, but I just peel the sweet potatoes, cut them into chunks, boil them. The sweet potato casserole recipe that I use is from the New York Times, and I add some butter in there. Go ahead and mash those up. The other thing you can do is you can actually bake the sweet potatoes whole and then scoop the insides out and make it that way too. But this is what I decided to go with this year. I added a can of sweetened condensed milk in there, and then I'm just stirring this together to make sure that everything is incorporated. Added some vanilla extract, stir that up. You're also going to want to add some eggs to this, but since the sweet potato mixture is hot, you do want to kind of temper the eggs first. I also added some sugar in there. All of these recipes that I use, I do kind of modify them a little bit based on our tastes. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the recipes. But to temper the egg, you just want to take a little bit of that warm sweet potato mixture and whisk it in with your egg in a mixing cup or a bowl before you add the eggs into the mixture, just to kind of warm up your eggs a little bit. If you just crack the eggs right into the warm sweet potatoes and mix it together, you're going to probably end up with little bits of scrambled egg in your sweet potato casserole, and nobody likes that. Stir this together until it is nice and smooth and combined. Grab your casserole dish and spray that with some cooking spray. Transfer the sweet potato mixture into there, smooth over the top, and then I'm going to set this aside until it's time to bake it. I actually don't think I got any footage of this, but once the sweet potatoes are about halfway baked, I do put marshmallows on top of them. Here's how the turkey's looking at, I don't know, about half, 2/3 of the way done. I'm going to go ahead and start working on my dressing. I guess I shouldn't call it stuffing because it doesn't go inside the turkey. So the recipe that I use for dressing is Ina Garten's recipe. I love it. I've been making it for years. It's delicious. I love that it has apples in it and the flavor is it's just so good. It also has sausage in it. So I'm just dicing up my onions and putting that into a big skillet along with some butter. And this recipe, you do want to dry out your bread the day before. So I don't think I got any footage of this, but I did buy a couple large loaves of French bread from the bakery at Hy-Vee and just cut those into cubes and let them sit out on a baking tray to dry out for about 24 hours. I can't remember. I may have had to put the bread in the oven to toast up for a little bit. I can't remember. You do want to make sure that your bread is like completely dry. I also diced up some apples and some celery. I like to make sure that I dice these fairly fine. Obviously, I will cook them down in that butter before adding them to the celery, but I don't really like chunky veggies in my stuffing, if you know what I mean. So try to kind of cut those up into small pieces. stick those in the pan, add some butter, and then I do like to add just a little bit of oil to kind of bring the smoke point down on the butter, just to make sure that nothing burns. Add some salt to kind of sweat those veggies out and season it up a little bit. And you want to kind of let this go like medium, low heat, because you want those veggies to get nice and soft. So it's going to take a little bit, but the patience is worth it. Like I said, this is the best stuffing / dressing recipe I have ever made. Added some pepper in there. You want to add some freshly chopped flat leaf parsley, and then also some thyme. I just use fresh thyme because that's what I had on hand. And then get a big bowl for this. Okay, so a couple years ago, I actually ordered this huge ass bowl off of Amazon specifically for this recipe, although I use it for other things too, because you do need quite a big bowl to mix this up. Put your bread cubes in there, add your sauteed veggies in there, and go ahead and stir that around until everything gets mixed through. You'll need 1 pound of sausage for this. I think the original recipe calls for Italian sausage, but I just always use a roll of breakfast sausage. Cook that, drain off all the fat, and then add it in with the veggies and the bread cubes. And then for this recipe, I always have to add way more chicken broth than the recipe calls for, because I don't want dry stuffing. So depending on what kind of bread you use, the amount of liquid is definitely going to vary. You kind of just do this by feeling. You keep stirring it, adding in more broth until it comes together and it's as wet as you'd like it to be. I also definitely recommend tasting it at this point to see if it needs any salt or pepper. Typically, you're not going to have to add much salt because the sausage is a little bit salty, but definitely better to taste it before you put it in the oven. As you can see, I have a deep 9x13 casserole dish that I greased with butter, and then you just want to spread that stuffing mixture in there. Make it even on the top, and you'll pop it into the oven. So the last part of this is that we're going to take that cheesecloth. I keep calling it a dressing. Why do I call it a dressing? Because I'm a nurse, and that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to me. But take that off of there, and as you can see, the breast is not quite brown yet. Okay, so at this point, you're going to keep basting it with that butter and wine mixture. Put it back in the oven until the turkey is nice and brown and cooked through. Sometimes on Thanksgiving, I like to make my mashed potatoes in the Instant Pot, but I just decided to boil them on the stove this year. And a big thank you to my sister who came over a few hours early on Thanksgiving, just like she does every year, to help me finish everything. She ended up actually making and finishing the mashed potatoes, and they turned out delicious. Obviously, mashed potato recipe is pretty self-explanatory. We just add butter, cream, milk, salt, pepper, whatever we have in the fridge. You can see how beautiful the turkey looks, right? It turned out great. What was your inspiration for this charcuterie board?
I did it myself.
No, I mean, like, did you look at pictures or you just got some vibes?
I looked at
this is the pièce de résistance
tutorial for this.
Yeah.
But, and then I was looking at stuff on like how to plate it, and they said like put like these down first.
Okay.
So they can put your biggest stuff down first, so that it takes up space, and then you can fill around it, and that's what I did. But the rest of it was just...
It's lovely.
My brain. Oh.
Yeah, it's very lovely. Keira was so excited to put together that charcuterie board, and I think she did a fantastic job. She kept joking that that's what she wants her college job to be while she's in college. She wants to run a charcuterie business. I'm like, hey, girl, you do you. I will support that for sure. I'm going to go ahead and slice the turkey. So I do use an electric carving knife, which I highly, highly recommend. It makes cutting up the turkey so much easier. I've tried it both ways. I've carved it with a regular knife. I've used an electric knife, and the electric knife definitely works better. So I do like to kind of split up the light and the dark meat and put those in separate pans, because some folks like the dark meat. Some folks like me like the white meat. As you can see, we ended up with a ton of white meat. So got that together, and then this is where everything starts like coming in hot and heavy, right? Like, people are there, you're ready to eat, you're taking the rolls out of the oven, they're a little bit crispy on the bottom, but you know what? We got her all done. So once we made the mashed potatoes, we actually transferred them to a crock pot to stay warm, which worked out great. The mashed potatoes were delicious. I realized when I'm editing this video that I also made chicken and noodles, which is Kira's favorite, and I totally forgot to film any of that, but I just use Ream's noodles, boil them in chicken stock, add some shredded chicken and some salt and pepper, and those are super simple. Here's our turkey. So lots of turkey left over. I didn't even actually end up carving the whole turkey until afterwards. We have green bean, I almost said green bean pie. It's green bean casserole. My sister brought that. It was delicious. I also made some mac and cheese. I used like a super simple, like boil the macaroni, add Velveeta and milk, and just stir it together, because I knew that with that huge turkey, I wasn't going to have enough room in the oven for a baked mac and cheese, and that turned out great. Here is our dressing. Turned out delicious. My sister made corn casserole. That is definitely a must on Thanksgiving. Also, our sweet potatoes turned out good. Broccoli salad and the rolls that were a little bit brown on the bottom, but still turned out great. Here is my Thanksgiving plate. Everything turned out delicious. And I guess in spite of everything, we still had a Thanksgiving and Christmas filled with family and good food. Milo says hi. I hope you guys had a really good holiday. And again, I apologize for being so absent for the last couple months here on YouTube, but life has just been chaos. Let me know in the comments below how your holidays went. How did Thanksgiving go? How did Christmas go? I'm hoping that 2026 is going to treat us a lot better than the end of 2025 did. And I'm back here on YouTube. I've got another video coming out tomorrow and another video coming out this weekend. So stay tuned, and I'll see you then. Thanks for being here. Bye.